Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar. I think this is our last webinar of the year, Dave, after doing many webinars over the past few months. Loads of people coming in and into this very popular topic here, Dave, one that we didn't think was going to be as popular, but this is one of our most subscribed to webinars so far. As usual, if you've been to an Orchestry webinar before, we try to run them a little bit differently. Lots of questions, a lot of feedback, a lot of content. So this is going to be fast-paced as usual, but we are all going to be here ready to go. If you do have meeting note takers, unfortunately, me and Dave love kicking them out. So we apologize, but rest assured, you will be given the recording. And if you want the slides, just reach out to us as well, and we'll make that happen. All right, let's get going here. So today we're going to talk about SharePoint Advanced Management with myself and David Franker. A little bit about myself. So my name is Michael Bisarik. I'm one of the founders and the CEO here. Again, lots of experience in Microsoft 365, huge passion around creating great software. That's why I'm fortunate enough to work with folks here at Orchestry. And my claim to fame is I am a former professional chef with very strong opinions on food. If you're interested in them, let me know in the chat, and I can definitely give you my thoughts on things. But again, I'm super grateful that everyone is here today, and you're going to have a really exciting next 60 minutes. David, hello.
Yeah, we'll keep you on the edge of your seats. I hope so. I'm the director of product here. I've been working with Michael for many years. It feels like a long time, but it's a very exciting space, and we've been kind of traveling through this M365 space for many years, and it's exciting to be able to build products on top of that. My claim to fame is not as exciting as Michael's, but I am a former historian by education, and eventually made my way into the wonderful world of SharePoint. And this is where we are.
It's where all good SharePoint people come from, a history background. And if you don't know about us, so we are Orchestry. We're a platform, sits on top of Microsoft 365 that helps you do a lot of things, particularly around getting Copilot ready. We've been around for about 5 years. Lots of fantastic customers which are on the call. We think we have a really compelling product out there in the market. We're not going to do the hard sell on you folks, but check out the G2 reviews. We're also now part of the Microsoft Pegasus program for startups, which is a huge thing for us. So only 100 startups on Earth are part of that program. So some really great innovation we're working on with Microsoft. And just last week, or the week before, we were one of the top 50 fastest growing tech companies in Canada as well, which is awesome. Again, this is our latest case study. If you are interested, you're looking maybe to buy something like Orchestry in the new year, check out our latest case study as well from the good folks at Monash Health. Really amazing story, Dave, particularly around saving SharePoint storage. They managed to save, I think, 3 terabytes in 24 hours with Orchestry, which was amazing. But again, some really good results there. But if you're interested in those, let us know as well. All right, feel free to get engaged. Get engaged in the chat. We try to make these as interactive as possible. If you have any questions as you go through it, either myself or Dave will answer them in real time. Think of us as your two kind of talking heads during this. We can definitely share our opinions. Probably not going to be as good as ChatGPT, but hey, we will try essentially through there. And social stuff as well. Follow us on LinkedIn, all of that sort of stuff. All right, let's get going, Dave, because we got a lot today. So today we're going to talk about SharePoint Advanced Management, what it is, why you would use it, and particularly around getting your SharePoint environment Copilot ready. We work with a lot of customers around Copilot readiness. So we're going to talk a little bit what we think Copilot readiness is holistically. And then we've cut it down a little bit just for this 1 hour webinar, because again, if we did a 1 hour webinar on end-to-end Copilot readiness, it'll just be a lot of high-level fluff without any substance. So we've tried to cut it down a little bit. Then we're going to talk about kind of the SharePoint Advanced Management overview, the features, this history, what's available at the moment. And then we're also going to show Dave a little bit of how Orchestry compares as well, because this really can be a better together story. If you're a customer of Orchestry, there's some stuff that SharePoint Advanced Management does that Orchestry doesn't do, but we can leverage. If you are using SharePoint Advanced Management currently, and maybe you feel it's not sufficient for your needs, we're going to show you how Orchestry can help as well. And as usual, lots of polls. Dave, do you want to launch the first poll? Because I cannot see it for some bizarre reason, and me and Dave can't work out why.
Let's launch the pulse check here to make sure the poll is working, and then we'll launch the real poll here. So let's see if everyone should be seeing the first pulse check up on their screen. We'll leave that up for maybe a couple more seconds. And then we will, okay, looks good. We got 33 responses, so we'll close that one. Thank you, everyone. I'll paste the results in the chat because sometimes we find people can't see them. So let's launch the real question here. How many people on the call are using SharePoint Advanced Management today? We'd just like to get a quick sense of the kind of the ratio on the call, and that'll help guide us as we move through some of these slides on SAM.
Oh, there's a lot of people that aren't. Oh, there's more people that aren't. Oh, this is going to be great for you folks. Okay.
Right, okay. Let's give it another couple seconds. Oh, 71% knows so far. Okay.
Amazing. Okay.
Great.
Well, this is going to be great for you folks. All right. Let's talk about why use SharePoint Advanced Management and what it is. So if we remember in the heady days of 2 years ago, Dave, remember Microsoft launched something called SharePoint Advanced Management. It was originally an add-on you had to pay $3 per user per month for. And originally when they launched SharePoint Advanced Management, it was kind of interesting. It was just a little bit after Copilot came out and customers started to understand that they probably had challenges around security and permissions and oversharing in particular. So Microsoft wanted to introduce a tool that could help, at least on the SharePoint side, in a few different areas. A lot of it was around permissioning. There was also some reporting and everything else. Fast forward about a year later, if you remember, actually this time, Dave, at Ignite last year, Microsoft stopped selling SharePoint Advanced Management as a separate add-on and then made it essentially part of the Copilot license. Now, for you folks that aren't using SharePoint Advanced Management, here's a quick tip for you. Buy a single Copilot license, assign that to a user, and SharePoint Advanced Management is going to light up for you. You're going to get all of those capabilities. You just need one Microsoft 365 Copilot license. Doesn't matter how many other licenses you have. And I'm going to say this 10 times. If you've got 100 users, you just need one Copilot license. If you've got 1,000 users, you just need one Copilot license. If you've got 10,000 users, you just need one Copilot license to get SharePoint Advanced Management. So that's probably the best tip. It has got a bunch of really good functionality within here. So if you don't have Copilot, and I assume everyone does because most organizations might have a few kicking around, just buy one and then all of this stuff is going to light up. It might take a couple of days, and I think you actually have to assign that license to a user. Buy a license, assign it to a user, and you get all of this stuff essentially happen. Now, in terms of getting your content ready for Microsoft 365, broadly, there's a bunch of stuff that you have to do. So things like reviewing security with things like DOP and conditional access policies, things like user reviews also. So making sure that you've got the correct users have access to the correct content. Again, that's gonna stop things like hallucinations and everything else. A little bit of stuff around structure. So again, we are seeing that in a lot of organizations that they're redoing the structure to make your Copilot efforts a little bit easier. Particularly, Dave, we're seeing agents where a lot of organizations are like, well, we don't want to run Copilot on everything, so why don't we move some content in maybe a particular SharePoint site and just create an agent with the scope of that site as well. Of course, you have to limit oversharing. Oversharing was something, Dave, I don't think we ever heard of like 3 years ago, right? And all of a sudden...
Wasn't a common word.
Wasn't a common word. Now it's everywhere. And essentially, it's the carnage that we have caused with SharePoint permissions and sharing over the many years that we've had content on there, and that's coming back to haunt us. And then the other thing is around content sprawl. So another thing as well for a lot of customers is like, well, you know, we want to run Copilot, we want to run AI, but we've got all of this content. Most of it is even redundant, trivial, or obsolete. So the first thing we want to do is clean up that old content that we have and archive it away, or maybe delete it. And that's, at least when we work with customers, that's the first thing most customers do, right? Get rid of all of the other old crap that you might not necessarily need. Now, you might want to get rid of it, for instance, by deleting it. We often say that, but that's fairly uncommon. But there's other ways. You can move it into a central area and maybe use a SAM feature to not make that available in Copilot. We'll talk about that. But really, the first step that you want to do is kind of deal with that content sprawl that a lot of organizations have. So now that we know a little bit about SAM, what kind of features are in SharePoint Advanced Management through here? Now, for those folks, I think it's called SharePoint Advanced Management. It used to be called SharePoint Premium, right, Dave? I don't know what Microsoft is going to call it next time, but we're calling it SharePoint Advanced Management for now. There's a range of capabilities as part of SharePoint Advanced Management. And really, I break it down into 3 different types of things that you can do. One of them is a series of admin actions that you can undertake. Again, the ability to have policies to block downloads from SharePoint and OneDrive, see some change history as well, which can be really, really powerful. Do some OneDrive access restrictions through here and apply restricted access control. The other part of SAM is a whole bunch of reports. So really advanced and additional reports around things like sensitivity, sharing, and permissions, which are really powerful and Microsoft has never had before. And then also a couple of additional reports. If you're an admin, there's what's called a recent actions report for you as an admin. So you can see what actions maybe an admin has undertaken within the admin center for a SharePoint site. Funny enough, Dave, I don't know if you knew this, it's not actually all of the actions performed. No. It's just the actions performed by the current logged in
by
admin.
Yourself.
Yeah, which is kind of useful, but also a little bit frustrating as well. There's a site policy comparison where you can kind of take 2 different sites and compare them policies. I didn't find this particularly useful, but there's a whole bunch of other reports through here as well. And then there's a bunch of policies and reviews, right? So things like an inactive site policy, a site ownership policy, and what we call site access reviews. The stuff with the green check boxes we're going to cover today. Again, we don't want to cover everything, but there's also a bunch of other stuff within SharePoint Advanced Management that you might want to use as well. Now, what are we going to do today? So we can't go through everything, but what we're basically going to do is go through a mini, I would say, Dave, getting ready with SharePoint Advanced Management for Microsoft 365 Copilot webinar edition, right?
Sure.
So we're going to go through 4 things.
Accelerated
things. 4 things that you probably want to do. So the first is, how do we identify inactive sites? Right? So this idea that we've got all of this content, let's say I have 50,000 SharePoint sites. How do I know if these are being used? What kind of reports can I use for them? And can I go and contact the owners in some sort of automated fashion to ask them if they still need these sites or not? Next thing is going to be a site around site ownership. So once you've identified and maybe removed those inactive sites, you have to make sure that your sites have owners, because you're going to be asking those owners to do stuff later on. For instance, cleaning up permissions and oversharing and everything else as well through here. So then we're going to verify site ownership. Then we're going to identify some oversharing using some reports. And then we're going to identify oversharing and permissions and send a bunch of access reviews through here. So at the end of this, particularly, we're going to get rid of all of the old sites that we might not necessarily need, make sure that all of our SharePoint sites have owners, and also clean up a lot of the oversharing and the permissions that we want to do. And we're going to use all of that and do all of that in the next 45 minutes using SharePoint Advanced Management. So let's get into it. First thing is around site lifecycle management. So there's a couple of features here. The first thing really for our goal is, well, we want to identify stuff that hasn't been used. And the reason we want to do that is you don't want to spend time cleaning stuff that's never going to be used for AI initiatives. Really, the goal of this is to improve that signal to noise ratio for Copilot, right? We want to have the smallest, best, most curated content that you can essentially do that through here. Now, there's a couple of different ways that we can do that. One of them is identifying stale sites through PowerShell. You can go through the Teams admin center. There's actually some things there also. SharePoint Advanced Management has some reports there as well. The great thing is it's good giving you reports, but the problem is that, well, if you've got reports, you as an admin don't want to now go out and start chasing these owners and sending them emails and all of that sort of stuff. That would be crazy, especially if you've got lots of sites. Luckily, The first policy we're going to look at from SharePoint Advanced Management is called an inactive site policy. So essentially, the way that this policy works, pretty easy, pretty simple. It allows you to go and find any stale sites and ask the owners if those sites should still exist. You can create these owners. You can run this as a simulation as well through here. There's some really neat kind of configuration capabilities in terms of determining how long you think a site is inactive, right? So whether it's been inactive for 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, or 12 months, you can configure these also. Owners or site admins, depending on what you set up, are going to get notified through here. They can then recertify this site through here. And the good thing is you can do this in an automated fashion. If the owners don't get back to you, you can also perform some enforcement actions. So either locking the site as read-only, or even locking the site as read-only, and then after a certain period of time, putting them into the Microsoft 365 archive, which is really neat as well, which is going to save on storage through here. We'll go through this in just a second, but from the end user side, pretty simple. They get an email, they click on certify site. That's basically it. They can do that directly within the context of this email, which is pretty neat. There's nothing really else that they can do. Like if they want to delete a site, they have to go in and do it manually. You can't put your own content within here. So again, it's limited, but it's much better what was before, because before there didn't used to be anything. Before we jump into a demo, Dave, what do we do around that piece?
Yeah, and there's a lot of different solutions here. We'd like to show the SAM one first here, and it's a good thing to have if you have one license. It's easy to put in place and it's inexpensive. We do things a little bit differently because a lot of our platform is dedicated to that lifecycle management. The archival policies, our equivalent of the inactive policies, go a little bit further. So we have a number of different methods. We find that some companies are more comfortable with the softer, more reversible archival, and others are willing to go all the way into that hard archive territory to delete. But most customers sit somewhere in the middle, right? And that's where things like the M365 archive are a great option. We also support multiple steps, and even things like alluding to Edward's question in the chat around, what if you try to clean up inactive sites, but there are no owners? Who are you going to confirm with that the site can be archived? It's a real problem. It is a real problem. One thing that we can do is we can say that if no one responds after multiple attempts, and likely they don't because there are no owners, you can just go ahead and force certain actions to happen. So you don't necessarily have to solve that problem, because the challenge could be, if you know something is inactive and if you have enough evidence to suggest that it should go ahead and be archived, resolving the ownerless problem for that workspace, Michael, is not really a priority anymore.
Yeah.
Right? So it really depends on how much you know, right? So this is one way that we like to tackle it. I think if we go to the next screen, we also make sure that notifications are very clear and that they're surfaced in multiple places. So we have a tasks kind of center where everyone gets a task to remind them when things are required. We also send these through email and through Teams. And you can see in Teams here, we have several options. It's not just yes or no. You can choose to renew the workspace and say that actually I need it, but that renewal is not necessarily permanent. You can configure it so that, in 90 days of inactivity, when that happens again, this owner will be re-prompted again to recertify that they really need to extend it again further. So this is just a quick peek at a much bigger feature set, but just thought we'd share really quickly here how we kind of tackle this problem.
Perfect. All right. So back to SAM, and the second thing is around site ownership. So again, one of the things that we see, I'm sure everyone has this, and if you do, feel free to react or thumbs up. Having sites without any owners becomes a nightmare, and becomes a nightmare for a number of different pieces. One of the pieces is, especially if you're doing Copilot readiness and you're expecting to go and ask people around what's in here, is this active or not? Not having any owners is hugely painful because no one's going to respond to you. And then having to go and find out, well, who should be an owner from the members is all really problematic. So there's some best practices that we try to employ through here. One of them is when you provision something, make sure there's at least two owners. But the other big thing that we see in a lot of organizations is people leave, and that change of ownership between workspaces never happens. So either we think that there's kind of notifications there as well through there as well. So verifying site ownership is super useful as well. So again, SharePoint Advanced Management has a solution for you folks. It's called the SharePoint Site Ownership Policy. And essentially it allows you to go create a policy through here and configure them. Again, you can choose the minimum set of owners or admins required for each site. It only goes to 2, which is kind of a little bit annoying. Some organizations like 3, but it's essentially 2. There's also, again, who you're going to be notified. So I really like this, right? Current site owners, current site admins as well. So owners and admins, again, both from the SharePoint side. I think one of them, Dave, is the site collection admins, and the other one is in the actually SharePoint site owners group. So there's a little bit of subtlety there as well.
Right.
Also, you can contact the manager of the previous owner or admin. We haven't actually seen this. I haven't seen this work because it only relies on if that person has left within 30 days and if you have the context somewhere. But I think it does work. And also, if there's no owners, you can also ask active site members, which I think is really useful because it allows SharePoint Advanced Management to do that chasing and the harassment essentially for you. Not the harassment, but the chasing. And it's the chasing that we know is hugely painful, especially if you got to do this for 5,000 different sites through here. Again, with this policy as well, you've got the ability to set an enforcement action if nothing happens. Same sort of enforcement actions, read only, or put them into the archive. Again, from the experience through here, pretty simple. Person gets an email, right? If nobody steps up as well. So if this doesn't get actioned by an owner after 3 attempts, SharePoint Advanced Management will essentially go to read only or archive through here. So again, really simple, really easy. It is a little bit difficult to track the progress of this, I'll be honest, but at least it's something automated that you can use through here. Now, Dave, we've also got some capabilities in this area. Let's talk about that, and then we'll jump into a demo.
Yeah, well, kind of, we could spend a whole hour talking about the workspace review and what it does, and I don't want to do that here. But one of our automations called the workspace review is kind of a recertification process. And as part of that, one of the things we want to make sure we're doing is ensuring that there is active ownership of a workspace, right? And so the way we do it is we obviously try to reach out to owners first. If those are not available, we give you some options to escalate this to other users. And I think one of the cool ones is similar to what Sam does. We go and we look at who are the most active contributors to content in the SharePoint site. And we give up to 5 of those most active people the option to promote themselves to become owners. And this is all configurable by the administrator. So if you don't want to do this because you have some very specific process for members being escalated up or being promoted, you don't have to use this, but it can be a really useful way. This is available in Orchestry with the workspace review today. So it is a great feature if you're trying to tackle this problem. What else? I think we have one more slide here. This is what it looks like in Orchestry. If you are one of those members and you're receiving a workspace review, you'll notice here in the middle of the screen here, it's actually identifying that there are no current owners available. And we're giving you the option as a member, I'm the member here, do I want to accept becoming an owner or am I not comfortable with that? We don't want to just auto apply their ownership. I think in most cases, we want to make sure the user is aware at a minimum that that's happening. So this is what it would look like for them receiving that. And then that would solve the ownerless problem going forward.
Perfect. A few limitations around this as well. It relies on users like reading the actual email and taking the actions as well through here. Again, from the notification side, they get sent once a month for inactive sites, and then only up to 3 amount of times or so, only a maximum of 2 users. And I can't still work out what should happen if you're a member and you get an ownerless review because you can't make anyone an owner. So I don't know what's supposed to happen there, but apparently this does work. I couldn't get it to work. But let's go in and check this out, folks, here as well. Okay, hopefully, Dave, you can see my screen here, right?
Yeah.
Something looks like SharePoint. Okay, so here we are in the SharePoint Admin Center. Once you buy your single license of Copilot, you get this thing called Advanced Management Pro. Now, this has changed a little bit. There's also a new screen here as well, which has some kind of information around this stuff also as well through here. This assessment has been in progress for the last 2 months. I'm not sure exactly what's going on there. But if we click on all features, these are all of the features that you get in SharePoint Advanced Management. So lots and lots of good stuff here. Everything is under this area, apart from site lifecycle management. You have to go to here. Again, the UX is a little bit odd, but at least we can find it. And there's two policies that we have here. So let's look at the inactive site policy here. Here's one that we've created earlier. I'll go through this really quickly because it's pretty easy. Again, you can even upload a CSV with up to 10,000 URLs or select sites at scale. So if I want to go in and say I want all team connected sites and all group connected sites without teams, for instance, I can do that. You can filter by sensitivity label, so just having sites with a particular label, maybe just having sites that were created in some way as well. So lots of options through here. Again, pretty simple. So we're going to say that anything that hasn't been touched for, let's say, 6 months is going to be classed as inactive. We want to notify both the site owners and the site admins. And if this policy gets sent to the owners and they don't respond after three times, what enforcement actions do you want to do? Do you want to do nothing, or do you want to do something like make it read-only, or make it read-only and then after that archive it? And when it says archive, it goes into the M365 archive. So it becomes into a read-only state. It also removes it from Copilot, and essentially you save on considerable amount of storage as well through here, but you can specify all of these as well. On the end user side, what essentially happens is, let's go here. Now you can download a detailed report to see what's going on, but I'll just show you what happens on the end user side. I'll get an email here. So this regional planning one has been inactive more than a month. If I don't want this, I'm just like, I don't need this site anymore. I can't actually delete it from here. I just get taken to instructions, which is kind of not great. There's also no link to the site through here. That's a little bit frustrating, but that's good. But to certify it, all I got to do is click on certify site, and that's it. It says this action completed successfully, and then we're essentially good to go. So pretty easy and pretty simple for that piece. That's for inactive sites. For ownerless policies, same sort of thing. So again, we can go, we can create one of these policies as well through here. Again, pretty similar in terms of how we can, choose these and select these. So let's go and select all here, click on next. Again, you can choose who can be responsible. So whether you want it just site owners or site admins, how many you want through here, whether it's going to be 1 or 2. And then again, you've got the ability to say, well, how are they going to be notified? Who's going to be notified through here? I really like this one here, this active site members one. Put in 5, and then this previous owner as well. Again, there's a bit of a caveat here that the manager's information is only kept for 30 days after the users leave. So again, it depends on that, and I actually haven't been able to get it to work. I'm sure that it does, I just haven't been able to do it. Same sort of idea, right? We'll get this, whether it's going to be read-only or not, all of that sort of stuff. Pretty simple. I can create one of these policies. There's 2 modes as well. I can run it in a simulation mode, which is really neat. So you kind of simulate it, then you download the report here and you can understand what's happened, and you can activate that policy as well through here. On the end user side, pretty neat. If I go back to emails, I have got one here, I think. This one here, for instance. So Rimper, this needs an owner, right? So this site is not compliant and requires 2 owners. This gives me a link to the site through here, and then I can go and essentially add another owner as well through here. So I can go here, site access, site access, and add an additional owner. You can see we've only got one here as well. So that's all I need to do, and I won't get that notification sent over. Pretty simple, pretty easy, but folks, far better than what we used to have, which is really we needed to go and do this all manually. Exactly, through there as well. All right, so that's a little bit around policies. Let me go back here and let's speed up, Dave, because there's a lot more good stuff to come. All right, the good stuff. Data access governance reports. Dave, can I make one quick point here, Michael?
Sure, that's go ahead. Interesting. You will notice that Microsoft is increasingly integrating this M365 archive to cold storage into things like SharePoint Advanced Management. You saw Michael there with one of the main actions they're highlighting you should do is move it. Remember, though, that you have to have pay-as-you-go billing set up for M365 archive. If you do not, and you try to set up one of these policies, from my testing, it will fail. So it will not be able to send it over because Microsoft's API will return that the archive is not lit up in your tenant. So if you are looking at these options, make sure you do that one setup step. Many of you probably have done it. Otherwise, you'll find that things will not go anywhere and they will fail to move.
Perfect.
Thanks,
Okay.
Michael. Okay, next poll.
Let's talk about this data access governance report. So the next thing we're going to talk about is these data access governance or DAG reports. I think DAG is a terrible word, but it is what it is. Should we launch the poll here, Dave? Who is using these reports and what are their thoughts? Because this was something that Microsoft touted very, very highly. And again, really good reports, particularly because before there was nothing available through here. But again, there are a little bit of limitations, and there's one report which was recently released which we find extremely powerful and extremely useful as well through here. Okay, so while we're getting the results here, so we got about 10 responses for the 10 people using SAM. Okay,
right, that's true. Okay, we'll close these
reports as well. All right, let's keep going here. So the goal here is to really identify oversharing, right? So the whole idea is, and we've talked about this before in our previous webinars, Dave, around Copilot. Copilot's not going to give you access to stuff that you don't have access to. The problem is that managing permissions on SharePoint is really, really difficult.
Right.
So the problem with that is that people's permissions are broken, and then Copilot is really good at surfacing those broken permissions that were already broken for many months, weeks, or years. Before SAM, there really wasn't a good way to do this in Microsoft 365 at all. Like you would have to go and run PowerShell scripts, and they were painful, especially if you had lots of sites. Now there is. Now there's two types of reports that these SharePoint SAM DAG reports are. There's what are called snapshot reports and what are called activity reports. And this is really important to know because people get really confused. A snapshot report, particularly this site permissions report, which is amazing, only gives you a snapshot at a point in time. Now you can run this report, get basically a count of all of your permissions, but it's just a snapshot in time, and you can't run that report for another 30 days, which basically means you're blind for the next 29 days right through here. At least it's something. Before, I know Dave, as consultants, I think we probably wrote the same scripts thousands of times of go through and try to identify who has access to what and all of that sort of stuff. At least this report gives you that.
Right.
The other thing are activity reports, and these are a lot around sharing links, which contribute to oversharing. But again, these are activity reports. They just give you the count of how many sharing activities have happened over the last 28 days. That's it. It doesn't go back in time, right? It's not going to go back and find sharing links that you created 2 to 3 years ago. So we've had customers come to us and say, you know, we've used SAM, we've cleaned up our environment, and then we've put in Orchestry, and we actually say, hang on, you've still got like hundreds of thousands of these because they were created a long time ago. Maybe Microsoft is going to change these to make these a little bit more robust, but I'm not sure. But at least there's something here as well. We don't want to complain too much because at least it's available. So for the sharing trends reports, there's 3 different types of reports. 3 around sharing links, around anyone links, people in your organization, and specific people shared externally, and a report for any SharePoint site that has the everyone except external users group added somewhere. If you have that group anywhere, for the love of God, get rid of it, because there's a whole bunch of craziness that does. I think it's an old throwback to the old SharePoint on-prem days from what I remember. Again, it's so bad that Microsoft has actually removed the ability for you to add that group in now. I know on OneDrive, but even on SharePoint as well through here. What these reports do is they give you a snapshot, and they also give you the ability to start site access reviews, which we'll talk about in a little bit of a moment. Really useful reports. You can create one of these, and then you can see how many shared links, in this case, people in your org links, have been created in that report period. So it's in the last 28 days. Remember, though, this just gives you a snapshot. These 567 links, for instance, through here, you don't actually know, and you can't go in as an admin, at least, to go and find these, right? It's just going to give you, hey, 567 of these were created. If you want to know this as an admin, you have to use some additional tools or PowerShell scripts. But you can also get your end users involved through these things called site access reviews. Now, there is a new report here, which we love, because I think this is the best report that Microsoft has ever created, and it's something that's been asked. It's called an oversharing baseline report. And what this gives you is a detailed picture of who can access your SharePoint site in various different ways, including internal, external, and link-based permissions. This is amazing because it shows you how many owners, how many members, how many guests, sensitivity labels, sharing settings, as well as a whole bunch of information around who has access, how they have access, and what they have access to, but at a high level. This report, the first time you run it, takes up to 5 days to run. I'm sure it probably uses a small nuclear power plant's worth of energy to go through every single SharePoint site and work out what those are. And then it can only be run once a month, which is kind of painful, to be honest with you, because this would be a great solution there. But again, you have that ability to do that as well through here. This is what it looks like. I think there's some really good things here. Unfortunately, it doesn't actually tell you what those items are. It just gives you the counts. But you have things like items with unique permissions, total permissioned users, how many guest permissions, external, how many Entra groups have access to this. It's awesome information. It's just very, very high level, right? Which is a little bit problematic. Now, we can use this report combined with Orchestry as well. Now, Dave, I know we have some reports, so how do we do this, basically?
Right. So we do it a little bit differently. Obviously, we try to eliminate that time window or cliff of 28 days. So when we crawl going back to the beginning of that workspace's kind of journey in time, and then we keep that up to date every night. So you can have confidence that whenever you're looking at this, you have the latest data and you don't just see the last 28 days activity. You see the total number of links, which I think is what ultimately we're all mostly grappling with, right? And from here, you can actually drill down and see exactly what those links are as an administrator, or exactly what those examples of broken inheritance are. So if we go to the next slide, I think I have an example here of just the sharing links specifically, which is one of the screens here. So as an administrator, you can say, well, what are those 137 links? And you come down a level here and you see what documents have been shared, what types of links they are, what types of attributes those links have. Do they have a password? Do they have an expiry? Who are they shared with? Who created them? And we're also working on rolling out that last accessed information, which we've heard from many customers would be really valuable to know, like, is this link actively being used, right? On top of the reporting, we also offer the built-in remediation, which we could maybe show at the end if we have time, but you see there's a smart actions button. There's also a more granular actions button on the right. So you can choose using filters, a very targeted way of cleaning up these links and getting rid of them, or you can just do the smart actions with one click and get that kind of to at least do that first layer of cleanup.
Perfect. Okay. So some limitations, right? Again, for the snapshot reports, they can only be created once a month, which is problematic. So you kind of have no visibility for the snapshot reports for the other 30-ish days. Not great. What I really do like about this is there's a way to be able to go and get end users involved, which we'll talk about this as well. Great to get these reports out to end users, Dave, and use those site access reviews to have them review. But if you're an admin and you want to review these links, you kind of can't do it, which is problematic as well. The other thing is the activity reports only provide trends also. So it's basically, it will show you how many things have been created. It's not actually going to show you, though, exactly what those are. All right, let's go into this, and I will prove that these permission reports do exist. I know there's some consternation in the crowd here, David, but we will show that. So let's go to SharePoint Advanced Management.
It's a naming thing, as usual with Microsoft.
Maybe, yeah. Let's go to All Features, and we're going to go to Data Access Governance Reports here. Now, there's a number of reports that are available. Thank God that loaded, because otherwise the crowd would have been right. There's a number of reports that are available. Snapshot reports and then activity reports. Sensitivity label apply to file. We didn't talk about this as one of them. This is the site permissions report, which seems that some people don't have. There's actually a third one here as well, Dave, which is coming out, which I've seen, but it's coming. And then there's this activity sharing links report. Let's touch upon the activity sharing links reports first. Really good reports. These ones you can run whenever you want through here. So I'm just going to run these again. So these ones you can run whenever you like. There's no 28-day kind of thing here as well. But what basically happens is that, again, these only show you information for the last 28 days. If I look at one of these reports, as well through here. So this is the report for summary for people in my organization links. And again, pretty neat, right? I can see exactly the name of the site, the URL. Does it have a site access review? We'll talk about those, the number of people in your organizational links created, and a bunch of additional information as well through here. Privacy, sharing, managed device, all of that sort of stuff, right? So really, really good stuff as well. And that's available for all of it, right? So anyone links, which of course is a scourge, people in your org, and specific people shared externally, right? Really great, really simple, really easy. You're going to be able to find all of this stuff. You can go and actually use AI insights. This can be quite useful. Not if you've got two sites, but if you've got thousands of them, it actually does a pretty good job of giving you some information through here. I'm sure this is sent to ChatGPT. The one report that I do like here is the site permissions across your organization's one. So again, folks, you can only run it once every 30 days. So I ran it a few days ago, November the 7th. If I click into here, this is the information that it provides. Let me make this a little bit smaller here, folks, and see what we can do. So here is basically all of the sites that have, all of the sites that have permissions, which is basically all of them, how many files they have, the items with unique permissions, the total set of permission users. This is awesome because this basically, you might think you've only got 2 users, but maybe they've got access through guest or through a Entra ID group and all of that sort of stuff as well. Guest user permissions, external participants, Entra ID group, count of links as well, count of anyone links, is there any EEU, lots and lots of good stuff available through here. I'll talk about how you action this later on through site reviews. That's the next part here. But again, really, really useful reports. If you want to action this as an admin, you're kind of out of luck. You can't really do much as well through here. And the other thing which is important to note as well, it only shows 100 of these basically through here. If you want to get a detailed report, you got to download it into a PDF, which includes up to 1 million sites. I only pray, folks, that you don't have 1 million sites through here, but really, really good. Now, we have these reports. How do we now basically go and action them? So for instance, let's say we see that this particular site has a bunch of people. Like, do we need to have so many people in the site? How do we go and contact the owners through here? Well, let's talk about that in our next part here really quick. And I'm going to jump back to the presentation, folks, here, and then we'll go to another demo and I'll show you how this links together, because the DAG reports and site access reviews essentially gives you the ability to do this. All right, let's keep rocking and rolling here. So we've done the demo. Okay, site access reviews. Now, this is something new as well, and this is purely a part of SAM. I really like this. Essentially, this allows you now to say, hey, we've identified a bunch of stuff that's oversharing or permissions. We want to now go and get owners to basically review these things. This is definitely new to SAM. This has never happened before, which is really, really good. I really like this. I mean, I like it. It also annoys me a little bit, Dave, because it has to, because we have a product that kind of does the same thing, but it actually does a pretty good job of this. And if you're not using SAM and you haven't tried this, you definitely should. So what does this essentially do? From the different reports that you have, remember we had all those different types of reports, the anyone links report, the people in your org report, the specific people link shared externally, and the permissions one. You can initiate what's called a site access review as well. Strangely enough, the OneDrive, I don't know if you knew this, Dave, so they don't have this for OneDrive yet. No idea why. I mean, it's good, I guess, for vendors, but they don't have it for OneDrive, so it's only for SharePoint sites.
Right.
These site access reviews also need to be triggered manually by an admin, which is kind of painful because eventually, Dave, you want like an automated process that does this for you on like a regular cadence. It doesn't do that. The big thing, particularly if you're a larger customer, is you can only trigger 1,000 of these site access reviews a month. So if you've got, let's say, 5,000 sites, right, you're kind of out of luck because you can only do 1,000 a month, then you have to wait another month. And in addition to that, remember, each report has its own site access review. So if you want someone to make sure your anyone links are good, your people in your org links are good, your specific people are good, and your permissions report is good, you're sending out 4 access reviews for a single site, okay, which can also further complicate things, and it also looks weird for end users, and I'll show you why that looks a little bit strange as well. Pretty simple the way that this works. A user gets an email. The email is very, very good. I like this email through here. It actually shows you a bit of a number overcount here, Dave. I think they've done a pretty good job with this.
Yeah.
And then the user has to go and do the site access review thing, which we'll talk about. Again, a good one is this permissions to many user thing as well. It does give your end users and your content owners a really good overview of all of the content, how it's being shared, the number of permissions users. The problem is that for them to then go and clean this up, they have to use this manage access thing, and that's complex for like the most skilled of SharePoint admins, let alone normal people to basically be able to go and click on manage access through here. And we'll talk about these in just a moment, but it does give you the ability to do that. Couple of limitations that we've talked about as well before we get into this. So the first one is, again, only 1,000 of these things can be triggered per month. This is a huge issue if you've got a larger tenant. So if you've got, I would say, over 1,000 sites, you're kind of out of luck, right? Where, you know, you do this once and things get cleaned up and you're like, okay, we have to do it again monthly. It can be a problem. So this is not a solution, you know, I don't think, for larger tenants, but again, at least it gives you something as well. The other thing is, for each sharing link type, each report requires a separate site access review. So again, you know, if I'm an owner, I might get 4 of these. And because, Dave, you know what people are like, you don't actually have to complete these site access reviews. You can just click on, like, you don't have to do anything. You can just click on complete. You can just do that as well. So it can be a little bit awkward. They also have to be triggered manually. But finally, we know the X's are not aligned here. Me and Dave couldn't work out why they're not aligned here, because it looks fine on the PowerPoint slide. And when we broadcast it through Teams, it looks odd. So we apologize for that. The other thing is, you can't really enforce anything. So if the person doesn't do the review, unlike the policies, which you can take an action, nothing happens. The review just sits there seemingly forever, basically, through here. So we don't really know what's going on. Dave, what do we have at the moment around this kind of site access review sort of thing? What does Orchestry have before we jump into a demo?
We have a few things in the works, but the first thing that we launched initially with the workspace review was the membership review step. And we tried to take some learnings, I think, from the areas that are challenging with the Microsoft experience. One of them is, you know, highlighting issues and warnings and making sure that those get resolved, right? So, for example, you might want to insist that every site has 2 owners, like this page here shows, and not let the user just skip that step, right? Or you might say that in some cases, some things are nice to have. Like in this case, we have a yellow warning that's saying we'd like to have a minimum of 2 members, but it's not going to block you from continuing. So finding that right balance is really customer dependent, environment dependent, right? Not everyone is going to treat this exactly the same way. So giving you the ability to tweak those levers for your particular environment, your context, and then display this kind of experience to a user where they can do a lot of things all at the same time. As Michael mentioned, many of the access reviews and policies from SAM require you to do things in different places, right? So we like to try to think of how can we bring that all into kind of a single experience, a single interface, where here I can not only keep or remove users, I can also change their access, I can also add new people, and I can also see callouts from the platform about things that maybe merit my attention, like Isaiah Langer here has an account that's disabled, right? Which might be a clue for me that this person should probably be removed. So just that helping hand, that interpretation layer, and then also consolidating multiple steps into as few steps as possible, I think is always something that end users will appreciate.
Perfect. Okay, so let's jump into these, because this, folks, I think this is actually really, really useful stuff here as well. And especially for those of you who are new to SAM, it might be good. Okay, so let's go back to SharePoint Advanced Management. So remember, let's go back here to SharePoint Advanced Management through here. Go to all features. We're going to go back to our reports. So data access governance reports. So we've just been here. Let me make this a little bit smaller. So remember, for each type of report, you can send out what's called a site access review. So let's imagine that we've got our permissions report, which we really, really like. And we want to go and find all of our ones with pilot. which are through here. So I can see that, hey, we've got a bunch of items with unique permissions here. So I want basically our end users to be able to go and review this. So I can select these and I can click on Initiate Site Access Review. I click on this, I get some options through here. A couple of things which are different than the policy, which I really like. In this case, you can add a comment for site owner. So please review.
Please take this seriously, right?
Yeah, please take this seriously. Yeah, through here, and then I can click on send. And essentially what's going to happen is this site access review thing is going to happen here. Now, I can go and I can view all of the reviews that we have through here as well. And just to go back a little bit, people. So for each type of report, you can send a different type of site access review. So for instance, if I click on the anyone links one through here, and I click on Initiate Site Access Review, this is going to be a site access review just for anyone links, right? For instance. So they're going to get a separate site access review notification and a separate thing to do, which again, it's good flexibility there, but it can be problematic because typically when you want to get ready for Copilot, like you want people to clean all of this stuff up, right? Again, at the moment, you need to do it 3 different times through here. What does that look like from the end user side? So let's go to a site where, well, let's go back here first of all, view reports, view report. I can see all of the reviews which are through here as well. So we see we have a bunch that we've created through here. They have statuses associated with them as well. Sometimes these fail, not sure why, but sometimes they do through here. And you can also see where this site access review was generated from. So whether it's generated from that permissions report, from specific users, or for whatever one that is. A user will get an email and then they'll be directed to their site. Now, a lot of folks, you might not know this because there's so many options in M365, but this is a Microsoft 365 SharePoint site. So pretty standard stuff. There's nothing here. If I click on the cog here, if there's site access reviews for this site, you'll get a thing called site reviews here. I can go into here. I have to be an owner. So I'm going to click into this. And here are all the site access reviews that have been requested for me as well. Yeah. Okay. Now, let's say I want to do a permissions review. This is what I get as a user. Now, this is a pretty small site. Like, as an end user, I'm not sure if this helps me that much, Dave, to be honest.
No.
Like, I have to go through each one of these things individually. The manage access thing is this permission thing that comes up also.
Very quickly. Yeah.
Very quickly. So I got to go. Maybe I want to click on stop sharing. So this works. But I have to go through this stuff one by one right through here. So again, not the best sort of thing. Pretty hard, we think, for end users, like just trying to understand what's going on. But at least it's something, right? So I can go in. I can see who has access to what. One of the nice things is you can also see how the groups have access to it, but you can't actually see which people within the group has access to this as well. Anyway, folks, at least it's something, right? You can send this out to your end users. They can go through and they can click on complete review. Now, I can also complete this review without doing anything. And because there's no way to actually make something do something, what we find with a lot of these reviews is users just simply don't do it, right? So you have to have a little bit of change management and a little bit of communications as well through here also. But again, at least it's something, right, for you to help get ready. And particularly from a Copilot perspective, that ability to maybe say, well, can you please review all of the anyone links? So this is one which has an anyone link that was created within these particular days. I can go into here, click on manage access, click on links, and I'm going to go and delete this. Again, I know how to do this because we live in this space. It's probably a little bit more difficult for your end users, so you will need to train them a little bit or maybe use another solution as well through here. All right, a few more minutes left here. Let me jump back here, Dave.
Doing fairly well on the time.
Yeah, doing pretty well on time. We're usually out of time by this.
We have a few slides left and can make it.
Yeah, so let's talk really quickly, Dave, about this SAM and Orchestry better together story, and then we'll wrap this up here at the top of the hour.
So I recognize obviously some names in the the list of participants here from our customers, which is awesome. Always love to have you. And I think one of the things that we talk to our customers a lot is, well, we have SAM, we are using Orchestry for many things. Are there opportunities where they can complement each other, right? It's not necessarily an adversarial conversation. And there are some areas, right? I think. And future customers, that would, yeah, that would be great. So one of them is in Orchestry, we have this concept of a risk rating, and we introduced that. I think it was about 3 or 4 months ago, Michael, and I think it's been a really useful kind of North Star metric for when you look at a workspace, what does its overall risk profile look like, right? And there's definitions in Orchestry for what this means. We're essentially looking at, I think it's around 15 or 16 different attributes that contribute to a score. That score gets calculated out of 100, and that way we can kind of normalize a score across all your sites and give you a rough sense. It's not going to be perfect, but it's going to give you a rough sense of which workspaces have a very high risk exposure and which ones do not. So this can be a useful way to prioritize tackling problems, right? Because I think a big challenge with SAM, with any tool, is where do I start, right? I'm just one person, or maybe I'm two or three. I'm in a person, a small team of 2 or 3 people. Where do we start? Because we can't fix everything, and or we have limitations in the tools we're using, and we can only tackle 1,000 sites a month, right? So this could be useful here to help you identify that first tranche kind of things that you would tackle. So this could be useful on the restricted content discovery side. So this is a feature that you now see labeled with Pro, as Microsoft is moving towards this Pro nomenclature instead of SAM, where you can prevent the contents of the site from being exposed into Copilot. This is actually a different flag than the old is indexed flag in SharePoint that we had from on-prem, and we still actually have. It's a different flag. It doesn't mean that the site is not indexed. It simply prevents the indexed items from being surfaced in Copilot, which for many customers is actually a better option. So why would you do this? Well, you might say these sites that are high risk, they require us to do some deep analysis and review and ultimately try to reduce that risk. Maybe while we're doing that, let's turn on restricted content discovery just to make sure there's no accidental leakage coming out of these sites for that temporary period of remediation, right? So this could be a good way that you can use Pro features here with SAM in conjunction with Orchestry. And we can move to the next one. Another big one that we'll talk about is obviously sensitivity labels and the labeling exercise itself. So it's one thing to put in place labels in Purview. It's quite another to get them applied at scale to all of your workspaces, right? And I think sometimes administrators get given this really tricky task of go and figure this out. Other times we talk to administrators who say, we really would like to set some guardrails, but then let the owners of the team choose from an option that makes sense. So in Orchestry, we can apply those through provisioning and through templates, but we can also revalidate those, as you see in the bottom image here, where an owner is being told that they need to choose a sensitivity label, and maybe you do this every 6 months or every year, you would choose the schedule or the cadence. And you can see that currently the site has no label on the left, and that label is not a permitted choice, having no label. They have to choose either external, top secret, or internal. And doing this at scale while using the expertise of the team owners is a really useful feature. We can move to the next one now.
Yeah, let's finish this up with this one here, Dave.
Okay. Another one that I like is the change history. One of the things that I use the change history report for in SAM is I open that up. It does come out in a CSV like you see in the top here, but you can filter the types of events that are in that change history to ones that you want to focus on. So in my case, I focused on show me the sites that have had their sensitivity label changed or their sharing settings changed. Then I can also then go into Orchestry and target those same sites to go through a workspace review, and I can manually force that to happen ad hoc. So this can be a way to tie those two together as well, because now you're doing this based on an event-based kind of motion versus automatically on a regular schedule. So I think those were the main scenarios we wanted to cover.
Yeah, there's a couple of others which we'll put into the deck here as well. We're out of time. Awesome. Thanks,
Thank you,
everyone.
everyone.
Thank you so much for joining us. By the way, if you're interested in Orchestry, we have 28-day fully functional trials as well. Hopefully this gave you a bit of an overview of SharePoint Advanced Management. Give it a shot. It's free for the grand cost of one Copilot license. If you find there is some limitations there, come and speak to us. There's a bunch of stuff that we do we think can support SAM as well. But lots and lots of good stuff available there as well. Thank you, everyone. I really enjoyed everyone's presence on webinars this year. There's going to be a lot of exciting webinars coming up as well for next year. So have a lovely rest of the year here, folks. Thank you again for being part of the Orchestry family and webinar series. And we will see you all next year. Thanks, everyone.
Next week, if you're at Ignite, come
see
us.
Yeah, next week. If you are at Ignite, let us know. Come by and drop by the booth. What are we?
5352.
5352. 5352. We'll be there at Ignite if you want to come say hi. We've got awesome swag as well.
Please
all right,
come.
everyone.
Yeah, we'd love to see you.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
Thanks all.
Bye-bye.